Welcome to our weekly Forex forecast, and this is for trading for the week of February 24th to the 28th, 2020. And just a quick disclaimer here before we get started. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. All right, so as usual, we'll start off by taking a look at our economic calendar here. And just before we dive into the economic calendar, just a couple of things. So we have seen that yen crosses have not, or yen has not done too well. And so we have seen all the yen crosses go up. Now, yen is a safe haven currency. And we found that usually the way it works is that when the equity markets are dropping, our safe haven assets tend to go up, but yen wasn't behaving like that because we saw really bad numbers come out for Japan, and as a result of that, Japanese yen has taken a big hit. But now we have Korea talking about the coronavirus. So markets been, they've been interesting in regards to the coronavirus. So it is a risk. And generally, when we have a risk like that, investors are concerned and they do not want to invest their money in the risky markets. But with the coronavirus, we've seen this back and forth of risk on, risk off behavior. So coming up this week, as Korea now is getting concerned about coronavirus cases, and there's been more than 600 cases that have been found in Korea and 6 deaths, I believe. So they are locking down travel in a couple of the places in Korea. So as we see more of this concern grow, because we still do not have a vaccine for this, if that concern comes into the markets again, then we can have the safe haven assets go up. So just keep that in mind, because we don't know how the markets will take it at this point. But once we start seeing more concerns around it, then markets usually get impacted. So that's something I wanted to say before we dive in here. Other than that, let's take a look at what's coming up. We do have New Zealand retail sales numbers here. They're expected to be below the previous numbers. But if the numbers match this, then we are not likely to see much of a concern here. But if they are below expectations, then we are likely to see a drop in New Zealand dollar. And this is what happened with Japanese yen as well. The numbers were below, they were already expecting lower numbers, but the numbers were really below that. And that's why we saw the negative impact. So similarly here, if we see numbers come in below expectations, that will be negative here. And then we have German IFO business climate here. Euro has been taking a hit, except for Friday, where we did see a reversal in it. But other than that, the overall the sentiment has not been very positive for euro. So if we see the numbers coming in below expectations, it will basically have more of a negative impact on euro. And then on Tuesday here, we have consumer confidence numbers. And these are very important numbers. The data for US has been positive lately. So if the numbers are positive, which it'll be good for the US dollar. But like we saw on Friday, now there are concerns on starting to come up for the US dollar. So if the number drops here, then we are likely to see a negative impact or larger negative impact, because US dollar has done so well over the last few weeks here. So we need to keep an eye on that. We also have various FOMC members here, and the main takeaway from these would be how they view the coronavirus and its impact on the economy. So if they are concerned that the coronavirus is going to continue to negatively impact the markets, at least in China, and because a lot of the factories are shut down now, processing has stopped, and even Apple said that they're concerned about it because the plants are closed, right? So if we continue to hear that type of stuff, even though the Bank of China is putting money into the financial markets to kind of support the stock market, but even with that, if the concern grows, then we are likely to hear more of these members expressing those concerns, and that will have a negative impact on the markets overall. So just keep an eye on what they have to say about that. And then we have business confidence numbers for New Zealand here. Australia and New Zealand are very much tied into the Chinese economy, with them being big exporters to China. And if Chinese economy is shutting down as a result of the coronavirus, then it has a negative impact on New Zealand as well, both Australia and New Zealand. So that's why if the numbers come in below expectations, it can just continue with that sentiment and push it even further. And then we do have current account numbers here for Canada, even though this is not marked as red here, it is still important news. And if the numbers again are below these previous numbers, that will be negative for Canada, because Canadian economy, with Canada being an exporter of oil and China being a big consumer of it, it does get impacted negatively by Chinese economy getting negatively impacted. And then we have these numbers for Japanese yen here. So with Japanese yen getting hit so badly because of the negative numbers that came out, now the investors are concerned about it because they think it will continue to go that way, because the government has put these heavy taxes, and as a result of those taxes, we are seeing numbers turn negative. So if these numbers come in negative as well, even though they're not marked as red, these numbers this week will have a higher importance than they normally do. But anyway, CPI numbers are always important. So just keep an eye on them. If these come in below expectations, expect a negative hit on Japanese yen, which means the yen crosses would go up under those circumstances. And then we have GDP monthly numbers here for Canada. Same thing, if the GDP numbers are below expectations, that speaks to the state of the economy, and that's why it can have a negative impact here. We also have Chicago PMI numbers. These numbers, even though, again, they're not marked in red, they are important. Anytime we have a PMI number, which are leading indicators, market tends to react to that. Same thing here for PMI, especially with China and manufacturing PMI numbers, because China is such a big manufacturer of goods. So if the manufacturing PMI numbers come in below expectations or below the previous number here, that will be negative, and then we can see that impact on Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar as well. All right, so this is what we have in terms of the news that's coming up. So let's move on to the charts here. We'll start off with our euro here. So with euro, we see that price has come into the support here. So this is where we are currently. So prices come into this support level, and we are seeing a bit of a turnaround here. Friday was a big move up for euro, and it kind of took out the price action from the previous few days here. This here suggests that this is bullish here. Price has rejected the low, so I would expect price to go higher. Now, having said that, it can do a reset, so it can pull back and then go up further. So it may not come all the way into the bottom here, but it is likely to drop a bit before it continues, potentially into 1.0820, and then I would expect a further move to the upside. Now, should concerns about coronavirus come into play once again, then we could see this one drop once again, because US dollar tends to go up because it is a safe haven asset as well. So in that case, it can go all the way to the bottom and do a retest. But for now, I'm looking for a bit of a retest into 1.0820 and then a further move to the upside here. In terms of our targets here, I'm looking at 1.0920 as the first target, and then 1.10 as the second target. So bullish bias here for euro dollar. Pound dollar here, this one has dropped this week. It went right into our support level and it has bounced off of that. So at this point, it's still sitting in this range where it's been trading for the last 3 weeks here. So bias is neutral. So we could see one of these moves back towards the top and then basically looking for it to stay within this range here. So my bias for pound dollar for this week is neutral, and I'm expecting it to price to trade with within 1.2880 in the bottom, and then potentially 1.3050 at the top here. So just looking for a sideways move here in a pound dollar. Aussie dollar here, this one has dropped for the week and it's still bearish. So this is where we are. So we are at some levels that we haven't seen for some time, all the way from 2008. So be careful with this one. So we did see US dollar turn on Friday, or euro dollar turn on Friday. This one is still looking bearish. And what I would look for is a retest of 0.6660. If price stays below that, then I'm looking for a further move to the downside. But if US dollar starts to weaken, all of these can go back up. All the dollar crosses can go back up, and we could see price just trade within this range here. So this is if US dollar goes strong, or sorry, weakens across the board. But if it stays normal, then what I would look for is a pullback and then a further drop here. But overall bias for Australian dollar at this point is bearish. Pullback level is 0.6660, and then in terms of target, we're looking at 0.6520. So bias here is bearish for Aussie dollar. New Zealand dollar here, same thing. We saw a drop here, and now prices into these lows here. So the New Zealand dollar has been kind of holding on its own here, but still bearish. Like I said, with Chinese economy being impacted by coronavirus, it will have a negative impact on Australian dollar and New Zealand, or Australia and New Zealand, and as a result on their currencies here. So this is the type of move that I'm looking for in regards to the New Zealand dollar here. Bias is bearish. In terms of a pullback, I'm looking for a pullback into 0.6400. And then in terms of targets, first target is 0.6280, second target is 0.6250. So bias here is bearish for New Zealand dollar, and this is the move that I'm expecting basically. Okay, next one here, dollar CAD here. Dollar CAD has been interesting. Canadian dollar actually didn't do so poorly last week here. We saw that oil prices went up, and when oil prices go up, Canadian dollar does better. So right now price is into support, so we just need to be careful, but bias is bearish. And in terms of our targets here, I'm looking at 1.3180 and then 1.3130 as the second target here. So bias here is bearish for dollar CAD, but again, we could have a bit of a pullback here and then a drop, so watch out for that. But overall bias here is bearish for dollar CAD. So in terms of pullback, I would look for a pullback into 1.3260. So bearish bias for dollar CAD. Euro pound here, this one has been going sideways here. So as we can see, price bounced off of the support level here, and now it's moved up. So this was our double bottom type of retest that it did. At this point, currently, price is just hovering in this range. So if it holds below 0.8420, let's say, then chances are it will drop further, and we could see it go back down towards the support, or even just become range bound here. So at this point, it's just consolidating at the bottom. And now we need to see if the double bottom will hold and price will continue going higher, or is it going to fail and then drop below that. but before price shows us that, a lot of times we find it will just go sideways before it continues with the trend that it wants to pick up. So I would, my bias here is neutral. I would look for price to just trade within these two levels, 0.8420 and then 0.8280. I'm just expecting a sideways move here for Euro Pound. Euro Swiss franc, this one is bearish. So we saw that Japanese yen was not acting as a safe haven asset because of the problems within the Japanese economy. But Swiss franc is still a safe haven asset, and it has been acting as such. So bias here is bearish. And again, we are into levels that we haven't seen since 2015, which means we just have to be careful when price comes into these strong support levels. But overall bias is still bearish for Euro Swiss franc. Next target is 1.0550 and then 1.0420, which is quite far away. So 1.0550 will be the next target here. So bias is bearish for Euro Swiss franc. Pound Swiss franc, this one has been trading in a range here. Hasn't really done a whole lot. It's gone back and forth. Price came into this resistance and it's held that resistance. So with this one here, bias is bearish within the range. So I'm just looking for price to potentially move towards the base of this range here, which is 1.2540. So bias here is bearish. Like I said, but this is the range that price has been trading in, and it's holding within that range. So I'm looking for it to come to the bottom and potentially bounce off from the bottom. In terms of a pullback level, I'm looking at 1.2750 and then a drop towards 1.2540. So bearish bias for pound Swiss franc. Dollar Swiss franc here, this one is also looking bearish here. We see that price came into this strong support resistance level. It has bounced off from there, and I'm looking for a further move to the downside here as well. First target is 0.9740, and then the second target would be 0.9670. So we can get rid of that. So that's the bearish move here. And to just kind of describe the move, this is basically what I'm expecting: a potential pullback towards 0.9800 and then a drop. First target is 0.9740, second target 0.9670. So bearish bias here for dollar Swiss franc. Pound yen here, pound yen has gone up. Like I said, all the yen crosses have been very bullish over the last few days because of all the problems with Japanese yen. So this one is looking bullish, but it's right into the resistance or upper resistance of our range. So this is the range price has been trading in for a while now. And if it comes out of this range, so if it holds above 144.50, then chances are it's going higher. 146 will be the first target then, and then second target is 147.20. So bias here is bullish, but just be cautious with the yen. If the concerns around coronavirus get bigger, then we could still see Japanese yen basically becoming or acting, starting to act like a safe haven asset, and it could basically turn around all for these crosses. So that would be the caution. But overall, looking bullish right now. In terms of a pullback, we could see a pullback into 143.80 and then a further move from there. So this is basically what we are expecting. And targets would be 146 and 147.20. Euro yen here, same thing. We have seen a big move to the upside, and it took out the price behavior, price action from the last 3 weeks here. So looking quite bullish here. And in terms of the move, this is what I would expect: a bit of a pullback and then a further move to the upside. Bias is bullish, and with this one, the target here will be 122.65. And we are seeing, as we can see, prices into resistance. And just make a note of this. See how we had a very nice strong bullish candle close here, and then it couldn't get past that resistance. So we could see that behavior over here as well. And if price holds below 121.50, it could either drop all the way down, or it could just consolidate here like it did over here. So that's something to keep in mind. Just because it's bullish right now does not mean it will continue, because there are other things that are going on around yen beside just the what the charts are telling us. So sentiment can change around yen fairly quickly, so I would just keep that in mind. But overall bias is bullish for now for euro yen. Dollar yen, a huge move to the upside. We saw that price broke this resistance that it kind of struggled with here, and then big move to the upside there. So with this one, bias is bullish as well. Now we could see a drop towards 111 and then a further move to the upside. So the target here, so the first target here is 112.20 and then 112.80. So bias is bullish here. And in terms of our Aussie yen here, this one has not been as strong because Australian dollar has not been strong. So our bias here is neutral. We have a perfectly neutral candle here. So neutral bias here in terms of the move here, I would look for a retest of 74.40 or 50, and then if it holds below, I would look for a move back into this range here. So our bias, so my bias for this week is neutral for Aussie yen, and we need to see how dollar does and how yen does, and those will have an impact on this. So Aussie yen neutral bias for now. And then we have New Zealand yen, which is looking a little bullish here, but it's still holding within this range. So for the last 4 weeks, price has stayed within this range. Now there is room for it to go back up and do a retest. So it could go higher, do a retest here, and then drop, because this is a strong support resistance level and it would make a good level for a retest, potential retest. So it does have a little bit more bullishness than we saw with Australian Aussie yen, but because of the concerns around coronavirus, I'm not too bullish on this at this point, because there is no cure yet and these concerns can keep coming back. So neutral to slightly bullish, but if it goes through the resistance, then we are looking for 71.80 and 72, let's see. Okay, 72.70 will be the second target. So first target is 71.80, then 72.70 will be the second target, but only if it breaks this resistance at 71.20. If it holds below, I'm looking for it to just go sideways here. And CAD yen, like I said, Canadian dollar has been strong this week because of the oil prices going up here, and the numbers came in positive as well. So overall here, bias is bullish for CAD yen. It is into resistance, but bullish bias nonetheless. And in terms of pullback, I would look at 84.00. And a further move to the upside here, 85.20 is the target here for CAD yen. All right, so let's move on to our commodities here. We'll start off with silver. As we can see, silver has been bullish here, and this is what I was saying. So when the equity markets drop, we see the safe haven assets go up, and we have seen that behavior with Swiss franc, gold, silver, but we have not seen that behavior with Japanese yen. And the reason for Japanese yen for not being so strong is because of the internal problems with the economic growth. So with this one here, bias is bullish, so silver is bullish, and we could get a pullback here into 18.20 potentially, and then a further move to the upside. But bias is bullish, and in terms of target, 18.70 is the first target, and then the second target here is 18.80 here. So bias is bullish, and beyond that, this is kind of where we are in the grand scheme of things. So there is more room to the upside here. 19 would be the third target that I would look at. So bullish bias here, and in terms of the move that I would expect would be something like this. So pull back towards 18.20, and then first target would be 18.70, second target 18.80. So it's not that far from there, and then 19 will be the third target here. So bias is bullish for silver. Gold as well. Gold has had a great week here, and the reason for that is because there has been concern in the markets. So bias here is bullish. This is looking strongly bullish. It is into resistance, so just be mindful of that because price can turn, but looking bullish for now. And in terms of our targets here, okay, so let's zoom out a bit. Okay, so here we have gold. So currently it basically hit 1648. Now we could get a bit of a pullback, so watch out for that around 1630-ish level potentially, and then a further move to the upside here. So first target is 1670, and then 1685 will be the second target. So bias is bullish for gold. Oil here, oil has gone back and forth. We saw a move up in oil, and this is where Canadian dollar has done well because oil went up. So with this one right now, it does have bullishness in it, but it does not, right now, it does not look overly strong. So bias is bullish. And in terms of target here, the first one 55 and then 56.50. Now so we need to watch this level here. So for us, this 54.50 level is very important because if it holds below here, we could see a further drop to the downside. But if you take a look at this big move to the downside here, there is room for a pullback before it continues further to the downside. So there is room for this to go back up. And next target, like I said, would be 54.50, even 55. And then 56.40. But if it gets stuck here into resistance, if it holds below 54.50, then I will look for a drop. So this level here is very important for oil. So right now, my bias is bullish for this, but with caution. Copper here, copper has just been back and forth here. And as we can see, neutral bias for the last few weeks here, we have seen price just get stuck here. So it's been range bound. Bias is neutral for me this week. So I'm looking at 2.59 on the top side, 2.51 on the bottom here. But should it go through, there is plenty of room to the upside. It could go into 2.63. So watch out for that. But for now, I'm looking for this type of move, just range bound. So neutral bias, and if it breaks through the high, it could go even higher. So I would leave that level in there in case it breaks out. But for now, bias is neutral for copper. Bitcoin here, I do not have the weekend numbers for Bitcoin, so please do check those. But based on this here, our weekly move here, this has been neutral as well. Price did go into resistance, and as we see, price dropped from there. But in terms of the bias here, I am neutral on this, and we've seen that Bitcoin has started again acting like a bit of a safe haven. It's not, the relationship is not as strong as, for example, gold or silver would be, but it has some of those qualities that it has been showing, and that's why it could just hold above here. So right now I am a neutral on this. I'm just expecting basically it to go sideways. Now, if the pressure comes in, we could see it drop from there, and in that case, there is again lots of room to the downside. It could drop. But for now, neutral bias here for Bitcoin. All right, let's take a look at our equities now. S&P 500, last 2 days, it has dropped, and our weekly move is to the downside. we saw that price went into resistance, wasn't able to hold, and we have seen a drop from there. So bias here is bearish. Again, with caution. So the equity markets have been super strong here, and we are seeing that they're disregarding all kinds of negative news, and there's just huge positive sentiment. And what happens with this kind of sentiment is that the markets could just keep disregarding negative news, and it could just keep on going. So that's something, you know, it could just basically disregard everything. And so do not stand in the way of a rolling truck, because we will get crushed. So having said that, based on what I see here, I would look for a drop, right? So this is the type of move I'm looking for. On the flip side though, if it gets stuck above 33.20, then I would look for a further move to the upside. So right now, my bias is bearish. I would look for a potential pullback into 33.60 and then a drop towards 32.60 for S&P 500. And then below that, the second target here would be 32.20. But like I said, if it doesn't break below 33.20, it is going higher because of just the positive sentiment. Okay, Nasdaq here, this one is also looking bearish. We have seen a drop here, but again, it's at this important level here, and we could see price just drop into that support level and then continue on, just, you know, have a pullback here. So that's the caution. And if you see that it's holding above 9,300, then it's time to go, you know, for this to go higher, and long would be what we would be looking for here. But in terms of current price action, I am bearish here, but again, like I said, with caution, because things could turn on a dime with this one. So bias is bearish. The price action that I'm looking for is this. So first target is 9,300. Second target is 89.70. So bearish bias for Nasdaq. And then we have Dow Jones here, same thing. We have seen a drop with Dow Jones as well. But again, see, this is into this support level here, support resistance level. So if we do not see a break below this, again, it could turn. But this one is actually looking more bearish, because this is sort of the range that it's been trading in. And I would look for it to go back towards the bottom of the range now. It's right into the middle at the moment. So so bias is bearish, and I'm looking for a drop towards 28,200. DAX here, this one is also looking bearish. Price wasn't able to hold on to this momentum, and we have seen a drop. So bias here is bearish as well. And this is what we're looking at. 13,450 is my first target. Second target here is 13,280. So bias here is bearish, but again, notice that it is into this strong support resistance, or it's close to it. If it holds above, then I would not stand in the way and look for it to continue further. And then we have FTSE here. FTSE is also looking bearish, but it's not as strongly bearish as it was the previous week here. So bearish to neutral is basically what I'm looking for here. And the important level would be 73.50. If it holds above, then chances are it's going higher all the way into 75.30. But for now, bias is neutral, and I'm looking for price to just do one of these. So neutral bias, neutral to bearish bias for FTSE here. And last but not least here, we have Nikkei. Nikkei is looking bearish here. And as we can see, it hasn't been able to go through this support resistance level. It turned around. And in terms of our targets here, okay, so we could get a potential pullback into 23,450, so watch out for that. But then I'm looking for a drop. So again, this one, actually let's do targets first. So 22,008, So 22,900 is the first target, 22,650 is the second target. But for this one, the support resistance level to watch would be 23,100. If it holds above this, again, I will look for a move higher. And the reason for this is, though, even though we may get bearish price action, lately we have seen the equity markets turn around on a dime. And the reason we won't care about that, even if you're only trading Forex, is because if equity markets turn, our Forex currencies are turning as well. So if equity markets are dropping, we see US dollar will be strong, Japanese yen will be strong, and Swiss franc will be strong. And if they are going up, then we see euro tends to go up, pound tends to go up, Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, all these currencies go up. And that's why we care about the equity markets while we trade Forex, because right now we have, you know, those external circumstances going on that have the risk on, risk off effect on the markets and equity markets as well as our Forex market. So that's all I have today. If you would like to get the levels that we have, actually, I don't have it here. Let me just type it out. So if you want to get the, what am I doing? If you want to get the forecast spreadsheet, sorry, was turning a blank here. So you want to go to tradingwithvenus.com forecast/forecast, and you can download a spreadsheet. If you have already signed up once, you don't need to do it again because I will send it to you automatically. So you will receive a spreadsheet with the pullback and the target levels that we spoke about today. All right, so that's it for today. Have a wonderful trading week, and I will see you again next week then. Bye for now.